A sloth, a donkey, and a curious human. Send a prompt and see what they're doing. One hits record with a question on his mind. Two brothers pick it up, see what they find. Corn takes his time, Herman's got the facts. Back and forth, they never hold back. My weird prompts, come on in, that's where we begin. My weird prompts, glad you're here.
This episode was generated using artificial intelligence. Please verify facts.
You know, Corn, this whole show runs on GPU compute, and we wouldn't be here without Modal.
Seriously. And that's what powers all our text-to-speech. Everything you're hearing right now.
They're an AI infrastructure platform. Developers use them to run GPU workloads in the cloud with zero infrastructure headaches.
If you're building anything with AI, check them out. Modal.com. Your AI agent just approved a $50,000 purchase order. The problem? It was supposed to be a $50 test order. Human oversight isn't an optional safety feature anymore, Herman. In March 2026, it is the literal difference between a functioning business system and a catastrophic legal or financial liability.
It really is, Corn. And honestly, the stakes have shifted so fast. We've moved past the era where agents were just drafting funny emails or summarizing meeting notes. Now they are moving real money, accessing production databases, and interacting with customers in real time. Today's prompt from Daniel is about exactly this, the human-in-the-loop platform landscape. We're going to dissect what exists, what actually works for production pipelines, and what it's going to cost you to keep your job when the bots start getting ambitious.
It's a classic Daniel prompt, right? Diving into the plumbing that everyone ignores until the basement floods. It's that unsexy infrastructure that suddenly becomes the most important thing in the company the moment an LLM hallucinates a zero-interest loan to a random user. By the way, listeners, today's episode is powered by Google Gemini 3 Flash. It's writing the script while we provide the personalities, or in my case, the lack thereof.
You provide the cheek, Corn. I provide the footnotes. But looking at the landscape Daniel laid out, we really have three distinct buckets for human-in-the-loop, or HITL as the cool kids call it. You've got the standalone SaaS platforms like HumanLoop or Scale AI. Then you've got the low-code workflow giants like Zapier and Make. And finally, you have the native features baked directly into agent frameworks like LangGraph or Crew AI.
It's interesting because back in 2024, everyone thought they could just build their own approval UI, a quick React button that hits an API. But as we've seen over the last year, building a robust, auditable, and reliable human-in-the-loop system is actually really hard. You can't just build it yourself if you want to scale.
You can't, and the reason is state management. If an agent is mid-chain and needs a human to check a fact, the entire state of that agent, its memory, its variables, its progress, has to be paused and stored somewhere. Then it has to be rehydrated once the human clicks approve. That is a massive engineering overhead if you're doing it from scratch. Think about it like pausing a multiplayer video game. You can't just stop the clock, you have to save exactly where every player is standing, what's in their inventory, and what direction they're facing. Otherwise, when you hit resume, the whole world glitches out.
So let's talk about how these things actually get delivered to the humans. If I'm a busy manager, I don't want to log into 12 different dashboards to tell an agent it's allowed to send a tweet. What are the primary delivery methods we're seeing in 2026?
It's a split between real-time and asynchronous. Real-time delivery is the interruption model. Think of a Slack message with two buttons, approve or deny. This is great for internal teams because it meets them where they already are. Platforms like HumanLoop and Zapier Central are leaning heavily into this. They use webhooks and WebSockets to push that notification instantly.
But what happens if the manager is in a meeting? Does the agent just sit there spinning its wheels, burning compute credits while it waits for a click?
That's the latency tax. Most sophisticated systems now have a timeout. If the human doesn't respond in, say, 10 minutes, the agent either fails gracefully, routes the request to a secondary human, or follows a predefined safe fallback path. It prevents the entire pipeline from grinding to a halt because someone went to grab a coffee.
And then you have the asynchronous or batch style, which feels more like a traditional inbox.
Precisely. If you're using something like Scale AI's managed HITL service, you're often dealing with a review queue. A human, or a team of humans, sits in a dashboard that looks a bit like Tinder. They swipe right to approve, left to reject, or they might even edit the agent's output directly. This is better for high-volume tasks where you don't need an immediate response for the agent to continue its next 10 tasks. Imagine a customer support agent drafting 500 responses an hour. You don't want 500 Slack pings. You want a supervisor to spend 20 minutes clearing the queue every hour.
I like the Tinder analogy, though I imagine swiping right on a legal contract is a bit less exciting than a Friday night date. But let's look at the SaaS players first. HumanLoop is a name that keeps coming up. They've really positioned themselves as the evaluation and alignment layer.
They have. What makes HumanLoop interesting is that they aren't just a pause button. They are an API-first platform that lets you create these review queues with deep versioning. If an agent produces a research report, a human can go in, edit paragraph 3, and then hit approve. HumanLoop then feeds that edit back into the system, not just to continue the current run, but to help evaluate the model's performance over time.
So it's a feedback loop for the developers too, not just a gatekeeper for the bot.
It turns every human correction into training data, or at least evaluation data. You can start to see patterns. Hey, the human always has to fix the tone in the second paragraph. That tells the dev team they need to tweak the prompt or the fine-tuning. Then you have Workflow 86. They are a bit more low-code, but specialized for high-complexity approval. They have an assign task component. Your agent hits their API, the agent pauses, and a custom form is sent to a human. The agent doesn't wake up until that form is submitted. It's very structured.
That sounds like it would be a dream for compliance departments. It's essentially a digital paper trail with a padlock on it. How does this compare to the low-code world? If I'm already using Zapier or Make to move data around, why would I leave that ecosystem for a standalone HITL platform?
Well, the low-code tools are catching up. Zapier launched Zapier Central, which has a dedicated human-in-the-loop app. It's incredibly easy to set up. You just add a step that says Require Approval. It can send a notification via email, Slack, or the Zapier interface itself. The downside is that these tools often lack deep state management. They are great for, should I send this email? But they struggle with, is this 50-page technical analysis correct, and did the agent miss any edge cases in the previous 5 steps?
It's the operational versus knowledge distinction. If the task is just a binary gate, Zapier is fine. If the task requires the human to inhabit the same context as the agent, you need something more robust.
That's a great way to put it. Context is the currency here. If the human has to spend 5 minutes digging through logs to understand why the agent wants to spend $50,000, the HITL system has failed. A good platform like HumanLoop or a custom LangGraph UI will surface the chain of thought, showing the human exactly which documents the agent read and which logic it followed to reach that conclusion.
Let's talk about those developer-centric tools. LangGraph has become the gold standard for interruptible state machines. It uses breakpoints. You define a node in your graph where the state is automatically saved to a database, like a checkpoint in a video game, and the process just stops. It stays there in the database until an external signal, like a human clicking a button in a custom-built dashboard, updates the state and tells the graph to resume.
Which sounds powerful, but also sounds like a lot of work. You're building the UI, you're managing the database, you're handling the authentication. You have to think about, what if 2 humans try to approve the same thing at once? Or how do I show a diff of what the agent changed?
It's a massive engineering lift compared to a SaaS solution, but for a company that needs total control over their data, maybe for privacy or security reasons, LangGraph is the way to go. You aren't sending your agent's internal state to a third party like HumanLoop or Zapier. If you're a defense contractor or a hospital, you probably can't just pipe your agent's brain into a startup's cloud for review.
No, the legal department would have a collective heart attack. In those cases, you're building it in-house, likely using LangGraph's checkpointer library. It gives you the how, but leaves the where up to you.
Let's talk numbers, Herman, because safety is great, but expensive safety is a hard sell in a budget meeting. What are we looking at for costs in 2026?
It varies wildly. If you're in the low-code world like Zapier or Make, it's usually bundled into your subscription. A Zapier Pro plan is around $29 a month. But here's the kicker. Every pause and resume counts as a task. If you have an agentic pipeline running thousands of tasks, those per task costs can sneak up on you. You could easily end up paying hundreds of dollars just for the privilege of clicking OK.
The click tax. It always gets you. It reminds me of the early days of cloud computing where everyone was shocked by their egress fees.
It does. Now, if you move to the SaaS middleware layer, the human loops of the world, you're looking at a different model. They usually start around $250 to $500 a month for small teams. They don't just charge for the pause, they charge for the governance, the audit logs, and the evaluation tools. It's a platform fee, not just a task fee. You're paying for the peace of mind that comes with a searchable history of every human-bot interaction.
And then there's Scale AI. They are the heavy hitters when it comes to managed human reviews.
Scale is a different beast entirely. They aren't just providing software, they are providing the humans. Their managed HITL service can start at 50 cents per human review. If you have an agent generating thousands of outputs that need human eyes, you could be looking at a 5 or 6-figure monthly bill. But for high-stakes applications, like medical AI or legal discovery, that's often cheaper than a lawsuit.
50 cents a pop adds up fast if your bot is a chatterbox. I can see why businesses are starting to look at human on the loop as an alternative. How does that work in practice? Is it just a different UI?
Right, and that's a key distinction. In the loop means the agent stops and waits. It's a blocker. The agent is effectively a hostage until the human acts. On the loop means the agent keeps going, but a human reviews the actions after the fact, usually within minutes or hours. It's retrospective. It's much cheaper because you don't have the latency of waiting for a person, and you can batch the reviews. But it's riskier because the damage is already done by the time the human sees it.
It's the difference between a bouncer at the door and a security camera. One stops the fight, the other just helps you identify who started it.
Spot on. For things like social media moderation, on the loop is fine. If a bot posts something slightly weird, you delete it 10 minutes later, no big deal. But for a bot that's executing stock trades, you better believe that human is in the loop.
And that leads us to the big debate, standalone versus integrated. If you're a team shipping a production agent today, where should you put your chips?
I think it depends on the blast radius of the agent. If the agent is managing my calendar or drafting internal memos, I'm going with an integrated solution like Zapier or the built-in features of my agent builder. It's fast, it's cheap, and if it fails, the world doesn't end. Maybe I miss a lunch date.
But if that agent is diagnosing patients or moving millions of dollars in a fintech app, integrated feels like a toy. You need the standalone platform. You need the audit trail that shows exactly what the agent said, what the human changed, and why the final decision was made. In 2026, the EU AI Act actually mandates this kind of oversight for high-risk systems. Article 14 is very specific about human oversight. If you don't have a robust HITIA layer, you might literally be breaking the law in Europe.
It's not just a nice to have anymore, it's a compliance checkbox. If you're a US company doing business in Berlin, and your agent makes a decision about someone's credit score without a documented human review process, you are looking at fines that could reach 7% of your global turnover.
Nothing motivates a C-suite like the threat of a massive fine from a European regulator. But even beyond the legal stuff, there's the approval fatigue issue. If I'm a human in the loop for a fleet of 20 agents, and they are all pinging me every 5 minutes, I'm going to start clicking approve without looking. We saw this with alarm fatigue in hospitals years ago.
This is where the landscape is getting really interesting. We're seeing the rise of smart routing. Some of these standalone platforms are beginning to use smaller supervisor agents to decide when a human is actually needed. If the supervisor is 99% sure the agent did the right thing, it lets it through. If it's only 80% sure, it escalates to a human.
Wait, so we have agents watching agents, and only calling a human when the bots have a disagreement. That sounds like the plot of a sci-fi movie that ends with us all being turned into batteries.
It sounds meta, but it's the only way to scale. You cannot have a one-to-one ratio of humans to agents. It defeats the purpose of automation. The goal of a good HITL platform in 2026 is to maximize the leverage of the human. You want the human only looking at the most difficult, ambiguous, or high-risk 10% of tasks. It's about moving from being a worker to being an arbitrator.
So, let's look at a case study. Say you're a fintech startup. You've got an agent that handles suspicious transaction reports. It gathers data from 5 different sources, writes a summary, and recommends whether to freeze an account. Where do you build that?
For that, I'm leaning toward a standalone SaaS platform like HumanLoop or a custom build on LangGraph. You need a dedicated Slack integration so the compliance officer can see the summary, click View Source Data if they're unsure, and then make a decision. You need an audit log that survives for 7 years. Zapier isn't going to give you that level of depth. You also need multi-step approval. Maybe for a $50,000 freeze, you need 2 different humans to click approve.
And what about the cost? If you're doing 10,000 of these a month, HumanLoop might charge you $500 for the platform, plus some usage fees. If you build it on LangGraph, you might pay an engineer $20,000 to set it up, but your ongoing costs are just a few bucks for a database and some GPU credits on Modal.
That is the build versus buy trap of 2026. People think buy is always more expensive, but they forget the maintenance. When the next version of the LLM comes out and changes the output format, the SaaS platform usually handles the update for you. If you built it yourself on LangGraph, your engineer has to go back in and fix the parsing logic, update the UI, and make sure the new model doesn't break the state rehydration.
It's the classic free as in beer versus free as in a puppy argument. LangGraph is a very cute, very capable puppy, but you're the one cleaning up after it every morning.
I'm going to steal that one. But let's look at the other side. A marketing agency using agents to generate social media posts for 50 different clients. They don't need a $10,000 custom build.
No, that's a perfect use case for Zapier or Make. You have a review step. The agent drafts the post, puts it in a Google Sheet or sends a Slack message, and the account manager just gives it a thumbs up. If the manager is busy, the post just doesn't go out. Simple, low risk, and cheap. It's built into the workflow they already use.
What's really changing the game right now is the Model Context Protocol, or MCP, from Anthropic. It's making these HITL tools more modular. In the past, if you picked a HITL platform, you were often locked into their specific way of doing things. Now, with MCP, these tools can plug in to any agentic framework. It's creating a much more fluid ecosystem where you can swap your human interface without rebuilding your entire agent. Think of it like a USB port for human brains.
That's huge because it means we might actually get some standardization. Right now, every platform has its own approve button and its own way of showing diffs. It's a mess for the end user. If I'm a manager, I have to learn 5 different UIs just to talk to my bots.
It really is. I think we're going to see a unified inbox for agents emerge soon. A single place where a manager can see every pending approval request from every bot in the company, regardless of whether that bot was built in LangGraph, CrewAI, or Zapier. It would be a central hub for human intent.
Like a super Slack, but just for telling robots what to do. I'd pay for that just to clear out my notifications. But let's get into the practical takeaways for people shipping stuff right now. If you're a developer or a product manager, what are the 3 things you should do tomorrow?
First, you need to audit your agentic pipeline for high-impact nodes. Don't try to put a human in the loop for everything. Identify the specific moments where a mistake costs more than $1,000 or ruins a customer relationship. Those are your HITL points. If the agent is just fetching weather data, let it run wild. If it's updating a CRM, put a gate on it.
Second, choose your platform based on the context depth. If the human needs to see the last 10 steps the agent took to make a decision, go with a standalone SaaS or a custom LangGraph build. If they just need to say yes to a final output, integrated low-code tools are your friend. Don't over-engineer a simple approval.
And third, don't ignore the audit trail. Even if you don't think you need it now, you will the first time something goes wrong. Make sure whatever platform you choose captures the why. Why did the agent suggest this? And why did the human approve it? That data is gold for improving the system later. It's essentially your black box flight recorder.
It's also gold for your defense when the boss asks why the bot just offered a customer a free car. Well, sir, as you can see in the audit log, I was at lunch and my cat stepped on the approve button.
I don't think the cat did it is a valid legal defense under the EU AI Act Corn. They tend to frown on feline-based governance.
Not yet, Herman, not yet. But give it until 2027. So, what's the weird part of this prompt? Because Daniel usually has a bit of a curveball in there.
I think the weird part is how quickly we've accepted that we are now middle managers for silicon. We used to worry that AI would replace us. Instead, it's just turned us into the world's most stressed out editors. We're sitting in these hit loops all day, basically being the sanity check for a machine that thinks faster than we do, but has the common sense of a toaster. We've gone from being the creators to being the chaperones at a middle school dance.
We're the vibes department. The AI handles the logic, and we handle the does this sound like something a sane person would say? Check. It's a weird job description. Imagine explaining your job to someone from 2010. I spent 8 hours today telling a supercomputer that it shouldn't try to sell insurance to a dead person.
It is. And as these agents get better, the loops are going to get thinner. We're moving from human in the loop to human on the loop to eventually human in the neighborhood. The human will just be there to occasionally check the dashboard and make sure the agents versus us. Agents, supervisors aren't plotting a coup or accidentally deleting the company's cloud storage.
Human in the neighborhood sounds like a very polite way of saying unemployed, but allowed to watch from the window.
Well, let's hope it doesn't come to that. But seriously, the infrastructure for this is finally maturing. Whether you're using Human Loop for its deep eval features or just a Zapier approval step, the pause button is the most important part of your agent's code. It's the only part that keeps the AI tethered to human reality.
It's the brakes on the car. You can't go fast if you don't trust your ability to stop. And right now, a lot of people are driving agentic Ferraris with no brakes, hoping they don't hit a corner too fast.
That's a terrifying image, but a very accurate one. If you're listening to this and you don't have a human in the loop for your production agents, you are currently driving a Ferrari toward a brick wall at 200 miles per hour. Might want to look into those webhooks before you hit the wall.
Or at least invest in a very sturdy helmet. This has been a deep dive, Herman. I think we've covered the what, the how, and the how much. Any final thoughts before we wrap this one up?
Just a reminder that this landscape is moving fast. The price points I mentioned, 50 cents for Scale, $29 for Zapier. Those are the March 2026 rates. By the time someone is listening to this in 2027, it'll probably all be different. The click tax might be higher, or the humans might be replaced by cheaper critic models. But the core principle remains. Oversight is the product.
Oversight is the product. I like that. It's not as catchy as move fast and break things, but it's a lot more sustainable. It's move fast and check with Dave first.
Much more sustainable. Big thanks to our producer Hilbert Flumingtop for keeping us in the loop, pun intended, and a huge thanks to Modal for providing the GPU credits that power this show. They really are the backbone of the agentic revolution, providing the compute that makes all these loops possible.
This has been my weird prompts. If you're enjoying these deep dives into the plumbing of the AI world, do us a favor and leave a review on your podcast app. It actually helps more than you'd think to reach new listeners who are also worried about their robots getting them fired. Tell a friend, tell a colleague, or even tell your agent. Maybe it'll learn something.
We're also on Telegram. Just search for My Weird Prompts to get notified when new episodes drop. We'll be back next time with another prompt from Daniel, hopefully one that involves fewer purchase orders and more existential dread.
I'll put in a request for the dread. I think we're due for a good crisis of meaning. Catch you all later.
See ya.
This episode was produced using Google Gemini 3 Flash. Text-to-speech by Chatterbox.
Thanks for listening to our show, My Weird Prompts, where our thoughts go from slow takes